working, and so we can actually begin the process. I'd like to invite Tracy May to open the meeting with the Karakia.
Thank you, Mr. Karakia
Apologies. We have an apology for Angela for lateness. And could I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you. Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. We'll be stopping at 11 a.m. just for a short break. Are there any proposed changes to today's agenda? If there are none, can I have a mover and seconder to confirm the agenda? In favour? Thank you. Carried. Disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest in today's item? No. So we have the minutes of the Submissions Subcommittee, which came out as an addendum to the meeting. Basically, the only issue on there was the submission to the Karakia Timatanga claim settlement bill, which we passed our submission in December 5. Are there any corrections to the minutes for completion? Moved, Councillor Mayer. Second. Thank you. Carried. Overview of the work of the committee. This is to refresh the terms of reference for the committee and review the work that we're going to be looking forward to training or coming year. So could I invite the Director of Science Policy, Tracy May, to speak to this item? The questions can follow after. No, I think it would be useful if we could just hear from Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and morning, councillors, and welcome to your first strategy and policy meeting. I think we're going to have quite the workload, both that we've put on ourselves and also government. Really, we won't be doing any work on the term committee, but just wanting to highlight that the term reference do very much put the development policy, regional policy, fairly and squarely at the foot of the committee. That's why it is a committee council, and that is policy that goes across the entire organisation. So maybe a bylaw from our resource use department, so maritime bylaws, the regional plan, the regional management strategy, through the ICM directory, Resource Management Act policy, and also some of the policies associated with the long-term plan that are not the financial. So they will come through this committee. We also, in the last long-term plan and as part of our Chief Executive's KPIs, set a number of strategies in train over the last triennium. Now, many of those come to fruition by the 30th of June. So they'll be coming to you at workshops to have conversations about, and then following that as endorsements. These are the development of the strategies. Workshop last week, it was very clear with our Growth and Resilience Committee, they're focused on, so we're still developing the energy strategy. That will come through this committee. The implementation will be passed over to other committees. Very similar to the biodiversity strategy. Development, which is where I'd say 80% of the way down the track with that the implementation goes across council, to be clear on that. And the last thing I wanted to take a bit of time and is what we have been developing up in terms of our work program overview. So the gifts that we have received from have put them in a presentation very similar to what the Chief Executive gave at your induction. So we've put everything along one of these diagrams. I don't intend to stop every point along the way. We will have this presentation as a PDF that we will send out. But what we've done is we've stepped through from 26, 29, 2030. That is in accordance with some of the aspirations that the government signalled. Much of this scoot through. Similarly with the long-term plan, why it becomes important going out to 2030 is you look at the local government reform program, and what is important, and we'll talk about later today, is obviously our submission, and then there are key along the way. Now, at each of these council be required to have a position, I imagine, on some things. So those positions that council will develop come through this committee. There are some responsibilities there. Similarly with the resource management system program, lots of points along the way that we will need guidance from our governors on. And there are also points that are locked into legislation now. So we spend a bit of time putting all this through something that hopefully is a bit more cogent, and we'll send the presentation out so you can get yourself through it. The key message, I guess, to take away is that a lot of the work of this be responding to a lot of these external matters. These are also only the ones we know about at there will likely be a number of other matters 6 to 7 months that the government sits. We know that the elections in November, the last sitting day for the House is the 12th of September, so we know that there will be a lot in the next 6 months. There'll either be a lot or there'll be nothing. But the government does have a very adventurous, aspirational legislative reform program. We know that the resource management is the top of that. We know that the local government reform we're talking about, the central government's wanting to get a lot of the pieces in play, but the legislation might in fact not happen until next term. So there are uncertainties. At the end of this presentation, we have popped all these 4 together so you can have a look. There's other legislative gone into in great detail because we're focused on other climate change response, water services reform. There's not an awful lot that the regional council is involved in. It's very important to understand that our TAs are involved in this, taking up a lot, and where so much of what's going to be on our plate is work with teams. Important to just be mindful of that. And that is really a very quick whistle stop through letting you know there's a lot on the plate. And this committee is the most frequent committee in terms of meetings. We will, as staff always do, we will try and get submissions to this committee. We have flexibility of the submission subcommittee that we can, as and when required. If submission periods don't allow for that, and we had the infamous 3.5-day submission period, something opened on a Thursday and closed on a Sunday, we can't actually call a meeting in accordance with standing orders. We will do that under delegation and report back to the committee. The other point I'd just raise is the rates capping submission that we workshopped. We finalised that. Councillor Marr and the Chief Executive had over that. We sent what was sent out in there information out. We'll always bring it back to the next committee, and also writer submissions, external finalised submissions to external matters are placed on our website. Please direct them.
Just to confirm, you're emailing out there all those diagrams and timelines?
Yes, we'll put it into a PDF for you so you can access it. It's really just the last half dozen. In fact, those probably diagram 30 slides of just, and we will keep it updated as we get more information. There are some areas very grey at the moment.
Chris?
Thanks, Chair Ben. Trace, just a question. Has a date been mandated by given the power totally divest themselves?
Through Mr. Chair, it's long, but the die-hard date that I've heard in 1 July this year. I'll double check that. That's what I hear and talk to my colleague. Very much push to get it done.
To me, that's very important.
On that, I understand that he may still wait for some. Oh.
Top of page 7 of it. Providing thought leadership on matters of regional significance. What's the leadership apart?
Yeah. It's words that have remained in the terms of reference for the last 12 years, so I'm assuming it's something that councillors are supportive of. I'm thinking that your thoughts and your thinking guiding leadership. Oh, through you, Mr. Chair, if you've got an aversion to it, then
That's laughable.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to make changes to the terms of reference, or are we agreed that we will carry on? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're now moving to the local government reform submission, and because, sorry, overview of the committee. Oh, we just have to have mover and seconder for the overview of the committee basis report. Jennifer. So we're now moving to the local government reform submission, and because I am making a submission to that, I'm going to stand down and ask the Deputy Chair to take over. I wish to advocate for the change, and so I thought it was better to do that as a member rather than as.
I think Ben has a lot to say on this issue, so it just gives him a bit more breathing space as well when he's not having to try at the same time. So yeah, everyone, we're on page 9 of our agenda and moving into our submission on simplifying local governments. I'd like to welcome 2 ladies, now Miffy and Sydney. Welcome, and I will hand over to you.
Good morning, everybody. For those of you I haven't met, I'm a policy advisor on the policy implementation team, and I've been the one that's been coordinating the research and analysis for the Waikato Regional Council submission on the Department of Internal Affairs draft proposal for simplifying local government. This is not yet a bill or a policy. This is a draft proposal intended to generate a public discussion. So to outline the next stages, In February 2026, there's a rapid review of regional council roles and functions. February 20th is when the submissions close on this draft proposal. March 2026, ministers report back to Cabinet with a final proposal and preliminary view on any transfer or cessation of regional council functions. Mid-2026, legislation introduced and referred to a select committee, and then mid-2027, legislation will be enacted. So the draft proposal is set out in 3 different key areas. Part A, background. Part B, simplifying regional governance. Part C, improving local government. And Part D, Treaty of Waitangi and Māori representation. The government is proposing to simplify local government in the following 2 steps. We can change this slide. Step 1, mayors will replace regional councillors. The government has also proposed the appointment of Crown Commissioners appointed by the government and is consulting on what level of involvement these commissioners may have on leading the board. Step 2, the Board of Mayors will develop future-focused plans for how the councils in the region can work together more effectively and efficiently. These plans are called regional reorganisation plans and will be developed with consultation with communities, examined independently and be approved by the government. The proposal simplifies local government as making mayors work together for the benefit of your region. The proposal puts forward the creation of a combined territorial board or CTB, and under this model there will not be 2 separate sets of elected councillors for the same area. The government considers that a review of local government is needed, as having 2 types of councils operating in the same region can be complex, confusing and costly. While supporting the need for local government reform, the submission outlines matters that are of material consequence to ensure that reform can be successfully implemented. The Council's draft submission is included as attachment 1 of the agenda. Recommendations in the submission to reform local government are summarised as below. Complexity of the Waikato region, experienced leadership through transition, mayoral capacity to lead successful change, time frame to deliver durable outcomes, catchment management, scale governance and decision making, alternative delivery models, and investigating the use of council controlled organisations, sufficient resourcing from central government, clarity for treaty settlement statutory obligations, and a connected view for change. Change the slide. The Waikato region's chief executives have supported the Waikato Mayoral Forum, of which our chair is, to develop key Waikato messages to inform submissions on the reform proposals. In developing these key messages, the forum acknowledges that each council in the region is diverse and has challenges unique to their communities. However, at the core is the need to individually and collectively serve our combined Waikato ratepayers well. We would like to highlight a formatting error in the submission table on page 23 of the agenda. And on page 17 of the agenda, paragraph 27, there is a figure missing. At the workshop, we were asked to source this data from ICM, and we can add that in there. Our flood protection of infrastructure is valued at $1.1 billion. And we could also further add that our annual flood protection work program is 27 million OPEX and $15 to $20 million CAPEX. At the workshop held on the 29th of January, some councillors expressed interest in the Environmental Canterbury submission. To summarise, the ECAN draft submission shows general alignment to our WRC submission in the following ways. Both submissions highlight their regional contexts, the uniqueness of our regions, and an agreement that the local government system is not fit for purpose and change is needed. Both submissions are similar in expressing concerns around cross-boundary issues, timing, and the capacity of mayors to be able to perform the tasks required of them in the CTB. Overall, the ECAN submission is more critical of the decisions outlined in the proposal, and it further highlights strengths of regional governance and decision-making and the importance of iwi representation. In terms of the other sector submissions, for Te Urikahaka and Taituara, We again show general alignment around underlying issues of local government, capacity, welcoming conversation with central government, clarity required around transitional agreement, arrangement and catchment boundary concerns. So the submission is now presented for the committee's consideration. I understand that Councillor Dunbar-Smith has some specific wording he'd like to put to the committee, and I would be happy to receive direction from the committee on content changes based off of this discussion.
Thank you, Sydney. That was well summarised. Appreciate that that work that you put into that. Then just before we head over to our first speaker, so what we have in front of us is our original submission, plus we have received from Ben a revised, suggested changes as well. So what we will be doing is working through these point by point. And anyone who's not in favour of any of the changes, please make sure, because I don't really want to go back to earlier points. We want to work through these methodically, and at the end, we will be able to hopefully have a draft, revised, submission ready to roll. So Tracy, did you have anything you wanted to say at this point? Otherwise,
Just thank you, Madam Chair. Ben and I have had a very quick conversation about the changes suggested. And there's just a couple of points of clarity that I asked Councillor Dunbar-Smith about. And just as you say, when we get to the end, we do have the recommendation that ultimately the finalising of the submission will be done between the chair and myself. So that will be Councillor Dunbar-Smith and myself at the conclusion of the discussion will finalise the submission for. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think the working through paragraph by paragraph is what we'll do, and we'll respond and stop just to make sure we get absolute clarity.
oh, that sounds really good. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Ben, before we start? You're ready to start?
Yeah.
Ready to roll. Okay.
Madam Chair, just one thing. Did any other councillors have any other comments that they wanted to share with the others, or is this working through it this way, best way to do it?
So there are other comments, but I think they'll come up as we work through the document.
Each of the councils have said that they're unique. The LDS was
Thank you, Noel. All right, okay, let's work at the very beginning. So we can start with, the introduction. And Ben, I'm just going to let you have a sort of standing role here, so you just jump in.
If I can just say, so firstly, you've got here, this is the original so that you've got in the text. This is my revision, which I emailed to everyone at the weekend. And then subsequent to that, feedback on that, I've made changes, questions, at the back of these submissions, just some minor changes to the questions that will come through the document. Why I made these changes is because I don't think that the submission reflects what councillors came to at the recent workshop. That when I read the ECAN one, they are much stronger about councillors should be here till 2028, that our region is unique in the sense of its diversity and its geography, and it's one of the most complex. So I've gone through and made changes to that effect as we've gone through and strengthened up positions. So if we're looking at paragraph 1, it stays the same. Paragraph 2, instead of 11 territorial authorities, one of our councillors had said, well, we've got 10 district and 1 council, so with 1 city council, so we've noted that. There is, in the original one of item 2, is concern about the proposed timeframes. I've simply shifted that down to item number 3, so it's just rewording it and emphasising that. Item 4 is the main changes, and what I've started with here is that regional councils remain in office till the 2028 local mayoral elections in order to provide a stable transition. That the CTB should focus primarily on the regional reorganisation process, and that during the transition process, councillors can look at the work on the 1.1 flood protection assets and ways that they could be looked at for council-controlled organisations, and that also it's important that the iwi representatives and JMAs continue, and that gives us a unique position compared with other regional councils throughout the country. That being said, we then move on to item 5. So if anyone's got any.
Yeah, so let's start with the first 4. So I have Tracy and then we'll go to Jen.
Yeah, I was just hoping we would, so we could say, okay, is your agreement to
Right,
to
didn't have
1
anything.
through to 3 and then 4 and then otherwise it was going to be a challenge.
Right, we're going to take a breath as perhaps every 3 or 4 things. So Jen, I'll hand over to you and then we'll go to Keith.
Sure, and firstly, thanks, Ben. I agree with a lot of your, not all of them, but my statement overall is I really like the ECAN submission, and I really like what the Mural Forum. So ours, I understand because it's our group, is a little bit different to those, of course, and so anything that Ben has brought in from either of those to been quite supportive. So the 2 points that I just wanted to say on that paragraph, since we're doing it this way, on the first line, I would just say there would be no future regional, it's semantics, but rather than will, so determined. And then in the third bullet point, I just think we need to be really careful about, like we've talked about in the workshop, about how we talk about the idea of a CCO. I think it's still, a new model could be a new structural model, a new funding model. Funding model we've already signalled quite strongly. Structural we have not. So I was just signalling I wouldn't mind adding the word new funding model to that effect. Either make it more explicit or just reword the whole sentence. Make sure that we are addressing that concern, that we're jumping the gun about CCO being the solution. But we have not talked about it as a group ever. A large group with an official report. I just don't want to send the wrong. That's all. But very happy to integrate it.
Thank you, Jen. What, Keith?
I think, Keith, you might need your mic. I share the concern, and I think Canterbury was too narrow in its perspective, saying that we are different. I think we are different in the Waikato, and that's why I'd suggest, Ben, that I did send you a note, that we bring in that not only are we going to look at CCO for drainage flood protection, but transport and roading, spatial planning, a separate unit, coastal and harbour management, which Canterbury doesn't really have, and free waters and shared procurement. Because that, what we're signalling is, and I think it's the point that you're trying to make, Ben, is that the role of the regional council has been not the big brother, but it's been the cohesive discussion point for all the CTBs, and we're going to possibly end up with 3 CTBs. Who's going to be the chicken and who's going to be the egg on that? And that's why I think we need to acknowledge to the government that this is a lot more complicated than they think it is, and just concentrating CCO for flood protection, I think it's too narrow.
Thank you, Keith. We'll go to Warren.
Thanks. Just picking up on that, I think it's outlining the idea that a regional council is happy to be working in this space and looking at where things can transition and what they. So my only point probably in this one, and it's a little leadership, thanks, that I think we should with the JMAs actually outline how many positions councillors fill in those roles.
We do it later on.
Oh, we do later on. Okay, happy to pick that up, because I think that's important for the outline of just how much work is done in that space. And if it's 20 councillors across 5 days or whatever, outline so government can get around requirement to fill those CFM.
Okay, we'll go to Chris.
Thanks, Deputy Chair Liz. First bullet point, the last sentence actually, this provides democratic outcome, as well as ensuring that regional voices process for theirs, as I understand it, are regional wide, so therefore they will represent that councils and regional council. I think that's surplus to requirements. Third bullet point, council-controlled organisation, and we know we haven't got. My suggestion is that we council-controlled trading organisation because far more flexible, commercially focused, and a couple of other regional councils I've spoken to, they believe that that's the up to travel rather than council-controlled organisation, commercial focus.
Can I just test that, please, with the other councillors? It's quite an important, thing. So if there's anyone that objects to that,
I think we need some actual papers on this. Like, usually put things in submissions that we have created some direction on, because we've had information take those. And so I'm happy to direction of investigating these things, both of them. Just would like it to be worded in a way that's reflective.
okay, Tracy.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, I think the suggestion that Councillor Nicol made in opening the discussion around alternative structural mechanisms such as put CCOs, CCTOs, or anything else that we, may pursue because we are keeping our minds open at this stage. The one matter that I talked about with Councillor Dunn in respect to bullet point 3 around adding some words in there about and working with central government and the sector on this. Much as we are unique, and there is some uniqueness to the Waikato that does set us apart. There aren't many other regions that manage water that comes in from others and supply water for electricity for regions outside ourselves. But nearly every other council will have flood protection infrastructure, and working together, we might actually be able to come up with a smart solution with central government. So I just suggested we put in some words there around working with government and the sector.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Tracy, because one of the messages we are getting back from DIA is that investigating these sort of mechanisms needs to be done in consultation with DAs. That's what the CTV is going to be to do. So we need to indicate that we are happy to be part of that process. Stuff we're looking at internally will certainly be articulated out through central government and the TAs, other than standing alone.
For you, Madam Chair, I think one of the strengths that will come through is hopefully government understanding exactly what Councillor Hines said. We are quite complex. We know our TAs manage infrastructure, but they run it as debt on their books. We don't with our infrastructure. So it's really important to help central government understand the difference there and why we do need to treat it a bit differently.
All right, I feel like we've sort of got general agreement on those first few points, and I just want to support actually some of the comments Chris made around ways that local government can do things differently. And for a long time, we've been, I guess, it feels like we've always struggled with trying to do things differently. But a CCO, a CCTO, all of those things will provide opportunities for the future. So if we're indicating in our submission, I think, yeah, it means that we're open to it. Great. All right, Ben, let you take over number 5.
Item 5, we refer to the Mayoral Forum letter, which is attached. I have simply, in the next sentence down, picked out the key points in the Mayoral Forum letter so that they're actually identified and comment that we support and endorse them, showing that we're working collaboratively together. I think the collaboration issue is important. It's unfortunate they not fully, but it's certainly a step forward.
Good, number 6.
Item number 6 is the current one that's in the document, and there may be some slight rearrangement. I was talking about Tracy about whether the treaty settlement one comes up above the catchment, so that in a minute. 7 is complexity. It's the state. And I felt that the ECAN one spelt out the complexity of their region much better than ours. Ours was too short on its complexity, so I've added in basically a lot of the wording we have from our strategic planning document recently, and talk about the importance of careful management of the assets.
Any
Comments?
queries on that? Everyone here with where we've taken that from and the rest of the wording of it? Good, moving on then.
Okay, item number 9. This is the one that I had the most concern with in our current submission, because to me, it appeared to actually agree to the CTBs without actually any pushback, and actually suggest that item number 10, that our only really option was that chair should join the CTBs. So that's why the earlier part is talking about regional councils should be here, the CTB should look at the organisation. And then at item number 10, so I've deleted the words, so it is important that the transition has experienced governance rather than immediately going to the CTB. And then item 10 just simply sets out that there are 3 stages of the workload. 1 is the governance of the regional council, 2 is the reorganisation work, and then 3 is the role of the mayors, and come to the role of the mayors and their workloads, items 11 through 15. So, comments?
Okay, we'll go to Noel.
Question, Ben, what about this after we spoke? There's a mandate for councillors to be here up until date. Is it envisaged that if the chair part of the CP, does that endure, or is there a specific vision to elect a person from the region represent regional perspectives going past? Because the mandate would end on that date.
It's an important question, one I think the CTB will probably be deciding eventually.
And if we end in June 2027, for example, there won't be a regional chair, but somebody would be presumably nominated across to the CTB. So under the current, so it's a question that I touch on in item number 16, which is simply talking about the mayoral capacity. Item number 16 at the bottom picks up the point that there'll be value in the WRC chair being appointed to the CTB till the end of 2028 to assist the transfer of knowledge. So picked up that earlier point, just really.
Thank you, Ben. We're going to go to Tipper online. Morning, Tipper. Morena.
Oh, Morena, I'm happy to hear the remainder of, unless you're finished. I'm happy to wait till the end. I was just putting my hand up ahead of time because I didn't get seen the other day.
That's okay.
Sorry, you at the end of the document? I don't know why. Are we at the end of the sub?
No, we're partway through. So
No,
you
I'm happy
just
to
raise-
wait till the end. I'm happy
Okay.
to wait till the end of my comments. Thank you.
Through Madam Chair, just to respond to Councillor Smith. I think we are on very safe ground saying that our chair would continue until 2028 because of the term is, I think, past 2028. I would suggest we wouldn't signal in this document, as Madam Chair said, that would be something that they would probably recommend of, but yeah, definitely I think that chair remains until the
But whoever became chair, it's the knowledge. Before he is, they don't want to rushed. There's no substance that
Well said, Noel. Well said.
the issue for me is that, and this is not against change the process. But what does he take to is delegate district council? I accept the mayor could have,
Thank you, Noel. We're going to go to Chris and then
Thanks, Liz. One of the points that I was making in our workshop, and I'll state it again now, is nowhere covered in the mission. We're expecting that the mayor's workloads are unmanageable. What we're not identifying is, and that's what Commissioner Tracy earlier about the water has done well, which will represent between 30 and 40% of the workload for most of the territorial authority, 33% for Hamilton Urban. That work's going at the end of July this year. I'm not. Can I have some decorum in the room? Later, if you want. My understanding is that it goes at the end of July, which means that these people are going to be left with a whole lot of stranded costs. The mayors should be dealing with that now. It's too late after the end of. They need to be doing their thinking and planning now. And we probably don't need to make the state the obvious in here, but I think they're going to be looking for things to do rather than looking for people to do the work for them, and not getting rid of people and downsizing their jobs. And they've missed the point of what this government is trying to achieve, trying to downsize local government. End of story. We have to be in a position to be able to assist with that process.
thank you, Chris. Warren?
Picking up on both Noel and Chris's point, I think this is a huge opportunity for district councils and regardless, I've heard from a number of mayors that don't see any reduction in workload in their term going forward. They've got enough issues. So, and I think it's the mayors should talk to capacity, not us. But I think this is a great opportunity. And to your point, Noel, I think that those mayors can get together and understand that they need the regional experience, that sort of thing, to help transition this process. Then they need to step up and ask for that in their support. I think that's what you will start to see. Have confidence that they will actually recognise where they have gaps and how those around the table could fill that there.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Warren. And look, let's not forget, I mean, I agree with you, Chris, but I think the transition for the next year or two is going to keep our mayors busy. It's the future forward, opportunities, I suppose, that that they are already thinking about. Okay, we'll go to Keith and then.
Yep. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, and I think this is a good discussion. I've probably got to be in my bonnet. And 10, the first item there about governance. I think that's a point that we need to expand a little bit in our submission, in saying that this is the government oversight, not only of continuing our role, but it's that we're going to have to bench test a whole lot of new concepts and that sort of thing. And I'm not putting myself in that basket, but we have a lot of experience around this table and within the staff to have robust discussion. And if we don't allow that transition to include us, and that's not justification for us to stay till 2028, but it's justification for the quality of the transition process. And I think we need to hammer the issue, the discussion about governance and what forms it going to be, and how do we get the best quality governance in the transition process.
I think we would agree with that. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to head on Chris Nolan said meetings with both councils down there, and their concern isn't so much the workload, it's the unknown. You've got, and I'm talking about Rotorua and Taupo, we're right at the end of both of our regional councils. We don't know what different CTVs are going to be set up and whether the talks are. I mean, we kind of think that we could be a unitary just in ourselves. It's just, like discussion between ourselves could go up there, because what we're scared of is that we're going to, what about industrial, the cities and urban areas, but the rural areas kind of get left out. We've seen that with the super city. We've heard that from councillors outside that. So I think it's the unknown, just how the CT B's going to be set up, who's going to make the decisions on where it goes, and how much input of those mayors and even outlying councils are not in our region. You know, is there going to be talk in those two CDBs? That's where I've found the discussion down there. So, you know, no one knows what the workload is. So, both the TB and then also what in those unit or those CTB areas, unitaries or whatever.
Right, Gary.
So I'd like to back up what Keith has said and also probably build on what Chris has said, because it is a combination of both. So we can't assume workloads of mayors. And so the two things that are critical going forward as far as this goes is structure and then the governance of that structure. And so the structure, if it's CCOs or whatever, can take a lot of the work out of the mayors and the mayoral forum. But then the governance of that, which is what Keith is talking about, I think is vital. And, you know, and I think that point that Keith made around governance, we just rearrange the deck chairs with the same governance, we actually achieve nothing. And so it's, you know, I just think Keith made it, you accepted it, but it needs to be reiterated. I think it's key to the whole.
Gary. Now, just want to make a point too. We are having audio issues online. So for those of you that are online, we apologise. We'll try and get those rectified. Now, we'll head back to Tracy and then we'll come back.
Madam Chair, I know there was a bit of discussion there, and it's a matter that hasn't been picked up in either the original position in the agenda or in Councillor Dunbar Smith's edit version around the ability of the mayors to delegate to others to be on the CTB. I just wondered if council had a point of view on that, whether it is, and I've heard different sides, whether it is the mayor because of its significance, or the mayor will pop on the because of its significance and the mayoral understanding of not all, but at least some exposure to regional issues, versus the mayor will perhaps delegate the best person for the job to be on the CTB. So it's not a matter that I think is picked up with just
Item 15
item
of the
15.
current submission and
So
and
it
the
is.
revised one. Yeah.
It is. There we go.
Right, so let's wait then to find Noel. Is that all right? All right, are we all in agreement where we're up to at the moment? So I'm going to hand over to you, Ben, please.
I mean, I think the position on the mayor's capacity is well done. Then we come to timeframes for durable outcomes. And I note at the very end of that, we consider the timeframe transition period should not be prior to the end of 2028. So what we've done now is simply say regional councillors should be here through to that period. And I think it's important we make that statement rather than rolling, because at the moment the polls suggest a hung parliament. So we don't want to position ourselves as saying we're gone by 2027 when in actual fact, don't know what may be the outcome. So moving on is the importance of catchment management in the process, given we're, sorry.
Yep, yeah. So we're just going to do a quick pause.
Quick pause just so I'm making sure we're capturing things. So from that page of course 11 down through to 18, there is comfort with what is included.
It's
Sorry, 11 through to
time frame for deliverables.
16-ish, yep.
Yeah, it's only you were asking Tracy about clarity on item 15, and did we come back to it? And now we've jumped to 16, so else required guidance-wise.
Yeah, so look, the only other thing I wanted to make a point about was just around the institutional knowledge of councillors. So just that particular word voiced. And we're going to go back to number 15.
Yeah, I did. And I went to it.
So this is me. I should be able to hear it here now, but that means I can read it there. Yeah.
Your mic is
So, excellent. Man, but I delegate to people like Rob, you know, so why we say, I agree completely with what here, but
Okay, all right, we can expand on that, on that space, yep.
Thank you, Ben. I think what you've done in the paper is quite enlightening. So thank you for that. This is, I guess, my point is Māori councillor more than personal, and we believe that if it happens, it happens. Our job at the moment, from the Māori perspective, is: are we working towards this not happening, or are we working towards this being better, and where we fit in it? So listening to all of this, I don't particularly care, or our people don't particularly care who takes it over, whether it's the mayors or whoever, and we're not going to sit in here and debate on a piece of paper where the Crown has made it clear that if it does happen, the mayors will take it over. I'm not talking to mayors about whether they can do the job or not. That's not my problem. Once my time is over, it's over. And I don't particularly care what mayor's in at that time, except when they go to vote. So and the other part, of course, is where we fit Māori. And Ben's done a good job in ensuring it's not so. I'm not agreeing with everybody around what we should be doing. I'm looking at, is there a submission we're putting through to say we're not happy and we want to look at what is better? Or is the submission talking about who's going to take it over and our part in that? I'm not really sure. From my perspective, if it goes ahead, the mayors are doing it whether they like it or not. From my perspective, if they are taking it over, I'm not particularly interested in whether the mayors like it or not. The other thing I worry about is they keep calling it Waikato Regional Council. Where's our staff? And, you know, the Crown is talking about elected members only. Does our staff then belong to the territory? Because it's our staff that we should be worried about, ensuring that their jobs are going to be looked after under the new system. We, come on, let's look at all of us. We put our name up for 3 years. You could be here this year, this term, and gone the next term. That's just the way it is. But our staff is. So I think we're missing that in our summit. This is my point. I don't care if the mayors take it up or not. I'll make sure the next mayor will get it. I'll choose right.
Thank you, Katarina, that's very thought-provoking, actually, good. You want to go, Mike? It was Mike and then it was Noel.
16, I just want to.
Yep.
Number 16, mine's just that paragraph. We consider that should not be prior to and go with, I think, the time frames.
Noel?
then just about being underneath.
We're not on attachment yet.
Oh, okay. So
We're
Just
just
like-
on 16 for now, if we can, yeah. Jen?
I was just going to agree with Mike just there and helpful to add one. We would, something along the lines of we would appreciate their communication in things. But, what Kata said, essentially, to support our duty and with them. I was taking all of the something along those lines.
Okay, no, thanks, Jen. Robbie?
yeah, supporting what Jen's saying, because we've got key roles that we're trying to fill at the moment, and they're going to be really hard to fill when these key roles of like say chief engineer and infrastructure manager And it's already hard enough with these water identities. Waikato Water's done well on that. They're going to be staffing up. So some of these roles are going to be really hard to fill. And if we're not clear that we're going to, the protection of our staff, it's going to be really hard to fill because they'll just move on somewhere else.
Right, Warren?
Yeah, I think we need to acknowledge what's in the actual proposed document, and that is that regional functions stay. They won't change prior to 2028. So we could put a bit of a comment around acknowledging that that's the position, because it won't be until the CTV set up and we get the information from the government on what regional functions are staying or potentially going. That all comes into that reorganisation piece, which won't be decided prior to. So I think as long as we capture that, then that covers us, because that's what's in the document.
Warren, did we want to say anything about the vast amount of technical expertise that's within our staffing? That probably this is going to be a major change in terms of direct leadership, or should we leave it?
And when you talk about the differences for the region, we have a huge amount of that technical knowledge, and that other regions draw, our mapping and all the rest of the things that Tracy's well across. So potentially, yeah, you're right. We could probably expand on that a little bit, and the partner organisation go information.
All right, everybody. I'm going to hand back over to Noel. Noel, you got light on. Okay. I'm going to go to Ben, and then he's going to start 17, 16.
Well, I'm actually going to say thank you, Katharina. And before we get to 17, so the reason the catchment stuff is in there is because it's one of our major things, and also we're talking about CCOs and our alternative models. But I wonder whether we shouldn't come over to 29 and 30 and bring up the treaty settlement stuff first to get into the detailed stuff.
Like you. It's hard enough to follow online if you're going to jump around the paper, Ben.
Let's just carry on with the sequencing.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so the reason the catchment management stuff is here, and a lot of it was in the original paper. In the original paper, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs on it. And to me, that made the submission wander off into the weeds about where catchment management. It didn't clarify why we were making an important issue of that. So I've cut that down to just 1, 2, 3 to 19, and then added in why it's unique and deleted the remainder. Tracy has some comments that she would prefer 20, 21 and 22 to go back in again. Perhaps Tracy, you want to talk about that now?
Thank you, Member Smith. So in the original submission in the agenda, paragraph 20 was put in there to recognise our infrastructure that our ratepayers pay for actually keeps the country going, particularly State Highway 1. And the government, and I know we had this conversation at the workshop, the government doesn't pay rates for that infrastructure. Yes, they may have put it in, walked away 50 years ago and said, here you go. And they may give us occasional money for upgrades through the regional funds and infrastructure funds, but it is a really important matter. It speaks to catchment management. Gassan, who is an engineer of some note here, will always, when he talks about Whangamareno and the lower Waikato, he will always say that starts at Taupo. So just from that catchment perspective, keeping the main trunk line and State Highway 1 going, not to mention our state highways elsewhere, is important. Number 2, paragraph 21, that's important in terms of just making sure that there's equity in funding of the systems, that it doesn't all fall on lower systems. The people who are at the lower end of the system, i.e. lower Waikato doesn't pay for all those funds. There is that need to look across the system. And number 22 was Waiho, Piako and Hauraki catchments have as significant issues. They're always a poor cousin. Robbie, I do listen. Um, but there are a different set of challenges for that system when we're looking at the headwaters down to the Gulf, which is a marine park in legislation then of the government, and there are requirements both in those catchments. So for me, I thought they were three important paragraphs. Perhaps we can tighten the words up, but I think the messaging in those paragraphs is really important. Thank you.
If I could just comment, I don't mind that. I just wanted to move it on to looking at the alternative model. So if
Yeah.
people want those changes, I'm happy with that.
I guess what I'm kind of hearing is that a part of our submission often is about educating those who are reading it. And perhaps it's if there is, you know, if we're not on a word count, then we might as well just leave it in there. Yeah. Because it's important, you know, I think. Now, Noel, are you waiting still for number 17? Or are we done with 17? Just want to check. Okay, let's go to 17 and then we'll come back to 20 to 24.
Focus of the things. If we have gone, living is bring that together somehow.
But it'll be the CTB that forms the CCO or the CCTO. Well, I don't see anyone else being able to do that.
So, ism
I hear. Okay.
There's a willingness. So I just want to highlight the fact some comment about doctrines.
Okay, you want to keep it open-ended? Everyone feel comfortable around that?
So that's item 25. Noel would need a slight wording change.
All right, so coming back to 20 through to 24. Any comments on that?
I was
Jim?
just gonna, just with Noel's point around, that could be, as far as I see, Ben, it could be added on to 17. You know, presently the proposal is silent matter. We believe various types of framework could be put around this, as part of discussions or something like that. It could be just a little pointer at the end of that.
Yep.
My point was, I think, Tracy, I don't know if we can basically get in there, but the weather events and the stuff that we actually protect our communities, we don't sort of mention our communities and highlight as much. When we look at the weather events that are hitting us just recently, you know, go back a couple of years as well, you know, it is our assets and oversight that is actually protecting those communities and the main trunk line and the state highway one. But I think that's something to bring into it, because what we're seeing is we're seeing the hillsides drop away, but we're seeing our stop banks working, our floodplains, etc. I just think it's something that's really relevant at the moment, something government's got oversight on, and it just helps.
It's the community.
Yeah,
not the governments.
That's right. That's what I mean. So it's a community stuff.
All right. No, thanks, Ryan. Okay, we're going to Jen and then to Keith.
No, I agree with all that, and really quite comfortable that Ben and figure all the additional detail out. And I would actually just, I'm contemplating whether it might be good for you, part of that is having.
Keith.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Just Ben, in terms of what Tracy raised and anyone, I think that's a huge body of work that we need to get our heads around and get the government to understand in terms of who funds flood protection, how we apportion the costing and the rating and the levying, and the government's responsibility, because as Tracy mentioned, it's very ad hoc, haphazard the way the government is doing the refunding, and that's no way to run a business or running CCTO, is it, Chris? So I think that needs to be identified as something that we need to put a lot of work into to get it right.
Madam Chair, perhaps we can reference the existing piece of work that we're going through at the moment, being led through Janine and ICM and our principal economist on funding, infrastructure, funding and financing. So make reference to that in the submission, because that will be useful for whoever has responsibility oversight.
And also, we've mentioned in the rates capping that they completely missed the boat on targeted rates, and we're getting rid of all targeted rates rather than flood catchment rates needed to remain. So, yeah.
Make a comment. Bobby and I met with and probably quite rightly brought up the fact of rates capping, discussing the reserves and that some of the catchments hold, and we are working with staff now and again to hopefully bring chief executive submission and the plan, get the rates sorted out this year. There's that space.
Explain a bit more. Explain what it means.
But it's some of the
Now, I don't think people can hear you. Just pop your mic up, Noel. Thank
some
you.
of the reserves in the rivers drainage in debt, and some of them will need substantial percentage increases. Normally, council only looks at it every 3 years. We're up to 6 years ago, it was looked at annually. It's currently, and so some reserves, unexpected have gone into the negative, as opposed to normally keeping 50% of the annual work program as a reserve. And so to bring those reserves out of debt or up to where they should be, a policy, rates are going to have to go up. But we're asking them to review that and bring a paper, those reserves to the annual plan, so that they don't get hit, being unable in the future, if the rates are capped, to be able to meet their obligations.
Great. Yes, perfect. Yep. Okay. Are we all?
Items 25 to 28 is basically what the council have about alternative delivery models, particularly for thing. Now, I wonder if item 25, what Mikhail was suggesting is that we don't suggest that CTBs are charged, that there's some extra wording in there.
Maybe something along the lines of the funding review, and we're obviously investigating that higher up, and then it just the importance of that carrying on, everything we just paragraphs above, rather than referring specifically to.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it's going to be really important that we reiterate in the transition, issues don't stop because governance and structures change. Those issues will carry on. One of the most significant issues we're facing is the funding of our infrastructure.
Okay. Right, let's keep moving through. Yep.
29 to 30 is treaty issues. Now, the first paragraph was written here, and then I've added quite a lot of detail about the JMAs and the number of meetings. I wonder, first we can go through that, but whether this should come ahead of the catchment stuff in terms of priority in the document. Any comments on 29 and 30?
I think you've got general agreement there, Ben. Yep.
Look at 28, but just the appropriate farmer, shouldn't that just be stakeholder, Ben, instead of farmer? It's not.
Sure.
Yeah, because like we protect houses and private landowners. I just, yeah, thank you.
I did ask the question on whether the numbers of councillors that attend these JMAs were included in it. And
20 regional council representatives.
Yep. Yeah. Should have read it further.
There's 20, and then there's another 4 for Waiora, but that wasn't
All right, we're going to head to Tipper online.
Kia ora, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Kate Pai. Just with clauses 29 and 30, I think it, again, mine might be, and thank you to the writers and thank you, Ben, for all your amendments, but to the tone, it doesn't read like a group of people that have requisite knowledge of the region and want to develop a super region. So in terms of how that hits with the tone of 29 and 30, we have the most mature arrangements in the country that have delivered over 10 years of experience. That doesn't read like this in 29 and 30. And the body of that experience on both council and iwi side of these arrangements. But it's a tone of the whole thing. We don't sound like people who are ready to lead a super region or even want to speak into that space. So again, it's just finessing, but I do appreciate the effort made to the whole sub. But that's what I'd have in 29 and 30. And those arrangements have 10 years embedded in them. It doesn't read like that. So again, to the writers, kia koutou te pene, I'm just saying, we sound very unleaderful in this whole submission.
Yeah,
Like
no,
we're not leaders of a super region. And I think that tone is totally missing in every part. But that's tākuia kine. So kia ora.
Thank you, Tipper. And you know what? I agree with you. I think some of the key words you said there resonated with me. So, did you want to email through some suggestions in this space?
No, I actually believe we've got the right writers in our staff. We just got to set the tone that they can bring to the submission. I don't have time to write what three other hands in the room are better at writing, but I'm just giving guidance that there's a tone to this. We sound desperate, not in leadership. We sound like we wouldn't have a plan if someone asked us what the super region might look like, that we have no ambition for our region. So in saying that, that's my input. I think someone could write that in, but it ain't going to be me. We've got enough paid hands to do that. Kia ora.
Okay, look, we'll have I think what we'll ask staff to do is have another go at it, and then we'll perhaps whip it through to you just to make sure that the tone is right. Perfect. Thank you.
I like that. Thank
All right, now Gary Maguire.
Just the point that I've noticed there, the project watershed that was brought investment for the Tonga Offset Works Agreement, the power dams station for X on the Lower Waikato, the diversion of water Waikato, to make sure that that is enshrined in whatever we pass on here to the future governors, is that is protected. That is funding that is rated on a catchment rate across catchment for Mountain Repay to Port Waikato. That funding is substantial in protecting the flood protection works in the Lower Waikato.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, Tracy's prepared to comment.
Yeah, just reiterating comment made before, that piece of work that we're presently going through at the moment in terms of infrastructure, the way we fund our infrastructure project watershed is an integral part of that. It took a significant amount of time and effort locking project watershed in at the time to get equitable funding. It is part of the parameters of what we're looking at now, so that we can have the conversations to feed into the LTP about funding. So that piece of work, I think Janine said, would be coming back to council mid this year with questions that will go through our LTP process, because that funding is so important. So I don't think project watershed needs to be specifically mentioned, but just want to give you assurance that it is part of that piece of work that's going on at the moment.
All right, Jen.
I'm just really agree with what Pippa said, and I think with those other sentiments got around the mayoral forum, I think that whole bringing together that tone of the one Waikato voice. I just think about how over the last few days, Northland got quite a lot of good publicity for the mayors coming together. I mean, they've got four, right? Territorials and the iwi situation is less compared to ours as well, but that's the kind of thing the minister did that many times, bring that tone in. I think that's what I picked up on, but yeah, and some of those other.
Okay, I think we've canvassed everyone that had their light on. Yes, okay, back to you.
So 30 through to the end, I've just added one sentence in here about reinforcing the importance of our 31, reinforcing the port of our involvement to legitimacy, constitutional legitimacy, security. Thank you, Mary Maguire, for those words. And then we come to the end. Once we've got to the end, I had one other issue that's come up subsequent that I don't think we've addressed, and that's the $100 million fund, which we don't have wording about yet. So I just, if you want to carry it to the end, and then perhaps we can get that separate.
No, Madam Chair, I don't have any points to make other than that's the one matter that I had also identified in terms of the investment fund and what comments council would like to make about that. Correct, but yes, Councillor Smith, other regions have some funds far more substantial than ours, but from this council's perspective and the investment fund, what signals do we want to send? Because that is actually the conversation we haven't had. Councillor Dunbar Smith's mentioned it a couple of times, but we haven't had any direction from this council to include any reference in the discussion. So if we're going to do it, now's our opportunity.
Well, my view is that we should mention it because the government is doing a rates capping process at the same time as doing this change. So the last thing they want is councils having a sugar hit of using up that money as fast as possible, and that we should point out that we have this fund and that legislation needs to be written so that it can't just be used within 10 years offsetting rates by mayors, for example. So something along those lines.
Warren, did you have a comment about this point?
Yeah, I just think it's something as simple as that regional funds and reserves are maintained for what they were collected for and what they've been set up to fund across the region.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's simple.
Everyone happy with that?
Integral.
Yeah, it is an important point, but if there's no, I think it's good. Picked it.
Elizabeth, I
No, Janine's.
was hoping Janine might be able. The absence. I will just make similar to Warren, an intergenerational fund. That statement needs to be made. Benefits. Been quite right. Sure we could. This is a rate in the short term.
Okay.
I think it's key that it's is identified as.
Madam Chair, we would run any comment that we make in there past Janine in the first instance.
And our policies, council will.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, we're going to Keith and then to Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Mine's in item 32. It's just a small insert to bring in, mention working with DIA because some of the comments we're making be quite offensive or insulting to the central government and the way we do it. So it's a matter of making sure that we take them along on our journey as well.
So yeah, I'm just mindful of all of the acronyms that we use around the table. So this is the Department of Internal Affairs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't like acronyms, but that's what everybody uses. So
It reminded me last night that it also stands for the Dairy Industry Awards. So I just wanted to make that point that we're talking about the DIA.
well, they can come too.
All right, Gary and then Jen.
Around the fund, I have a few comments. One is you can't govern from the grave, so we can't actually put protection around it. And if you want to overprotect it, and I don't disagree with the sentiment, right there. you're actually also saying that you don't trust the future governors to make the decisions. And the point that Keith was making earlier on, and I want to once again reiterate, is governance to this new entity, whatever it be, is going to be critical. And so the comments that have been made are saying we don't actually have any confidence in future governance, which is their position.
Yeah, a really valid,
Jen?
really valid comment. And the nuance I wanted to bring while agreeing, as I did before, was just that I don't mind if it's spent as long as it's spent with the intention of which expected. So, operational benefits, that is critical, whatever it is spent. So it's not constraining. It's just through our local government lens, elect and make all these decisions on the makes sense to stay with the intent. Of course, future governors can.
Gary's got another point.
That excludes a railroad.
Okay, but look, I think Warren's wording is going to cover both those points eloquently. So, right, back to Ben.
Yes, so in the back of the original document, there is questions and answers. Most of them I think are great, but I have made some minor changes, which is attached in this one that you hear. So if we could just look at that now. So item 1 and item 2 are fine. I questioned whether we are placed in the golden diamond of production and population, and Tracy informs me that we are. So perhaps you want to talk about that, Tracy, that triangle has been replaced.
Through you, Madam Chair. So we put a bid in early last year to the regional deals. Really, I think there's an old adage, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we wanted to at least be in front of government and say we're curious and we're interested. Thankfully, I have to say we were unsuccessful. Those councils who were successful have been asked to put up the lion's share of the money. But part of that, we learned that the Golden Triangle is very valid. It is encompassing of Auckland, Tauranga and the Waikato. However, it's not really the engine room of the region. So we extended it to the Golden Triangle, taking in from the Central Plateau, Otorohanga and South Waikato. And that was really reflective of saying the Waikato region is not just about Auckland, Tauranga and Hamilton, wider, and there are other contributing factors. So let's not be quite so myopic. So it's just term that we use, golden diamond now, not golden triangle. Tomato, tomato.
Just through you, Madam Chair, too. It was something that was raised at the Merrill Forum. I said on, so we've got districts south of us, and that quite rightly indicated that transport carries on and keeps on going south, both the main trunk line and the highways and things like that. So we need to broaden that view that is in the triangle.
Right, we'll start using all that new terminology. Okay, Ben, did you have any other?
Yes, so when we get to item number 3, the question is, do you agree with replacing regional councillors on CTB? Our original one says, please refer to our earlier overarching comments. Now, having worked in central government, I don't trust bureaucrats to look back at the previous ones. So what I've done is written down affirming here that what we want to say is that we want to stay here till 2028, we add value, blah, blah, blah. Then we move into essentially what the, in essence, still continues. In essence, we question the capability and capacity of mayors. I think it might be more appropriate to say we question the capacity of mayors rather than capability, so it's just a wording change. And so that's item 3 carries on as per we move to item 4. Again, it's what do you like or dislike about the proposal to replace regional councillors with the CTB? Well, I've actually spelled out what we don't like about it, and then carry on with what the staff have presented. And then when we come to item number 5, what level of Crown participation in regional government should occur? I don't like saying the council can see the advantages and challenges of the advantages and disadvantages. So I'm removing that altogether and just saying that we're basically pointing out that there's a challenge to local democracy, that local governments and instrument communities, we don't support a Crown Commissioner having veto power. Move the final one, which simply states, having noted above, the Crown does accept the Crown appointed commissioners will have capacities. So making the case rather than sitting on the fence both
Yeah.
ways.
Making it very clear what our position is. Anyone disagree with that? No?
I am absolutely supportive. Just want to make absolutely supportive of what I think this proposal, stepping back, I say it's a nonsense again. In reality, you've got about 6 unitaries working around the country. Auckland probably took too long to really be embedded, but it's there, it's massive in New Zealand situation. So I think we should actually step back and say, this is good, and I support done. But the question is, why don't we just say to the mayors, sort out which themselves, if you want to be a unitary, who is it with, and let's change it on the next date in October 2028. Let's stop the nonsense of all the CTB and all this other rubbish, because quite frankly, this is a really stupid way of going about it. And ask them who is wanting to work with each other, get in the bed or whatever you like to say, and then just do it. This is cumbersome.
Can I just comment there? I think that's essentially what we're trying to say in the whole submission, Noel. It's just on item question number 5, they specifically ask what level of Crown participation do we ask for? So rather than saying there's yes and goods and bad, I'm just saying state a position, which is we don't support a Crown Commissioner having veto power. So it was just clarifying.
The Mayoral Forum can have the discussion. Let's be a bit stronger and say we don't actually need to go through that. You know, this is fine, but do we really need to go through this? Why don't we just keep the mayors with their communities to ask who they want to be with, and just pass the legislation comes into effect.
I'm just trying to jump through the government hoops and answer the questions that they've asked us. And staff have done a great job on this part, and so
Yeah, I ask a
Okay,
question.
all right. Look, I think we'll call it at that. Hear your points, Noel. Let's just have a little bit of a think. Actually, I think Tracy, did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, there was specific comment made by councillors at the workshop, such that we did want to bob both way, to be fair, in this one, and that we were very clear we didn't want the veto power. But councillors also said, hey, if there are the right people for the right job, that bring the kind of smarts that we want, then we want them at the table. So that's why staff wrote that in. Councillors are now saying, yeah, we get that, but we want to be firmer. All good with that as well. But I just wanted to make sure that those matters that councillors raised at the workshop saying, Shivers, if we get the right independence on with the right skills, it might be a good thing. But we're taking that out, that's all good.
Yeah, oh no, we've got our speaking order. So I like to finish off threads and other things. So I think that there's a way through that we can incorporate both Noel and Ben, yeah, thinking that. Right, we'll go back to our speaking orders. We've got Tipper and then Jen and then Kata. So Tipper online.
Kia ora. I just note that there's a lot of places where we don't like what's being recommended, or we're questioning what's being recommended, but we don't have a remedy or a suggestion in lieu of that. So again, I believe our submission lacks a leadership voice, and I strongly hope that we find it between now and the time we submit it. Kia ora. And there's simple remedies, like we would prefer in extend timelines, put this, move this box here or there. Again, I'm not saying stop the reform, but when asked a big question like this, I'm saying, well, what's a leadership response? This isn't a leadership response, this is a plebs response. So tēnā koe, kare te whakapono ki nei Petihana, kia ora.
So Tipper, I'll throw this back at you then. So then what would your response be? What would you like to see?
Well, if it's a big enough issue that we raise it, then what is our leadership response to resolve that? If we're saying mayors can't do it or this set of circumstances, we're still problematising it in the tone of our submission, Chair. I'm saying, why aren't we upselling our solution voice? Because we just sound a bit downtrodden and Turkish. Kia nei. But again, that's the way I'm hearing it
Yeah,
in
no,
both workshops. Kia ora rā.
yeah, no, thank you for that further elaboration. I understand what you're saying now. I'm gonna head around the room. Are there any other further points to this? Yep, if it's on the same thread?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Jen.
Yep, so totally agree with Noel. Look, and when we had that workshop, Tracy, it was our first time going. I remember quite more in favour of the time because about developing the reorganisation plan. So part about mayors not able to sort out that part, that's where I was leaning. But if it's actually making decisions on the community, I think paragraph 2 in that box absolutely fit. And I think we should be stronger in paragraph 3, which is that we basically don't support C, D, or E because we believe in local government being a local. So I think we can come out strongly in the leadership is saying keep local. No problem with having an observable or some kind of link like we've had in the future partnership. That's fine. But yeah, I just wanted to give context to why there was a bit there and that nuance. Also agree with Noel's comment around happy to take a tone of we want to get on it, and I think that comes through solving some of these. Bring a tone of things we're doing. Okay. That's
Yeah. I heard Hoko the last two, and I wondered if we are actually being honest here, because the question is, do you agree with replacing regional councils with CB? And as an individual, I don't believe I agree to that, but as a collective, I'm not sure if each and every one of us think we've done a great job up to date. Can we continue doing that? That's question I believe that's in there. You know, do you agree with replacing blah, blah, blah? If we should be no, otherwise we wouldn't have put our hands up to be elected. You know, if you think it's a yes, why did you get yourself elected? So what's the answer to the no? That's my prerogative. The next one is, why do you dislike it? The reasons are, once again, over the 12 years I've been here, we've done a great job with all of the different people, with all the different chairs we've had, and we should be able to have answered that. We're giving in to the Crown. The Crown says we're doing this, and we go, okay, let's do that. But hey, we got elected to be in here. If our people didn't want you, they wouldn't have elected you. Because they said all the time. So I think we're not being quite honest in answering the simple, actually giving oops. Litigation, exactly what our leadership is. Warren and I spoke once, at his table. You have the leaders there already. You should have been able to put together with them answers to these, because where's the people's voice? Say, no, we don't agree. We elected you.
Thanks, Karen. On the same thing, Keith? Stick to this and just get this resolved if we can.
Yeah, I'm sort of agreeing with Rhino that if
if we're going to sit in limbo with this CBT for how many years, unless there's direction that they're going to amalgamate district councils and get on to getting unitaries, I don't agree with us being dissolved at all. Because we've been in the space where mayors have run this organisation in the past and it failed. They just didn't have the time or the ability to be here managing here and here. So I'm I'm agreeing with Katarina. Unless there's a real direction of where they want to get to.
Okay, I think we can summarise, that's right. So,
Who's going to be here? You know, like we might have a bunch of mayors turning up twice a month to oversee governance in this organisation. How's that going to be any better for the Waikato? No, but we are, no. Oh.
I think the point is that we're not fighting hard enough. I think that's what I'm hearing from those to keep us here locked post 2028. I think that's the point.
I am.
No, up to 2028.
It's not hard. Which papers do you want? And it's simple. It doesn't take another 2.5. And then it takes, your own overthought. Simple. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with Noel again.
Okay. Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Just, Katarina, you're right. We're not being as honest as we should be. We're just going with the flow, and I think what you say is correct. But just going back to the point we talked about in the role of commissioners, and Tracy, we did say that we didn't want interference, but what we said was we wanted access to good people if they're available, and I think that's smart, that's intelligent, and we should state that.
Okay.
Can I just ask Keith who's got the right of veto over who appointed?
I certainly won't, so I can't help you there.
Yeah, this is difficult. Okay, I'd like to thank those who are forming their final submission have have heard the voices around the table. So Ben and Tracy, you've heard the voices, and you'll be able to collectively make the appropriate changes.
Yeah, I was just, when it comes to the question, do you agree with placing regional council with the CTB? I didn't think it was a good idea to simply say no. What I've said there is that the regional councillors should continue with the regional council, and that the CTB should look at the regional reorganisation. So split the functions rather than say an absolute no. That's what it says.
I think that we're all in agreement, and that's that's our current draft now. Well, with the changes, yeah. Okay. All right.
Brilliant chairing and lovely timeframes.
Yeah. So I think we're all in agreement, right? Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Sydney.
Just to clarify through you, Madam Chair, we've got in the original paragraph 28, sufficient resourcing from central government to make reform a success. It's not explicitly mentioned in Councillor Dunbar Smith's rework. So would you like to keep it as is, or would you like it rewritten, or?
Tracy, you wanted to talk to that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, sorry, I'm mixing up my stations. Councillor Dunbar Smith and I talked about this prior to the meeting. I think it's important for that paragraph to remain in. Councillor Dunbar Smith just wanted to make sure that with the suggested amendments that I'm guessing councillors will endorse, it may require just some changes to that paragraph where we talk about sufficient resourcing. If we are advocating for something a bit more strident than what was in the original submission, perhaps we won't need to mention the resourcing, but as I clarified, it isn't just funding. actually support from DIA or MCERT, because they will be part of the new super ministry, and support from other areas, particularly, I think one area that we'll need support and guidance from will be in the treaty space and our treaty settlement obligations, because if you talk to any of our TAs, they have a very binary one-on-one relationship with their local iwi. They don't understand the complexity that we must deal with, not only JMAs, but the rest of our iwi other than Hihine Hinui and Te Kotahitanga, the connection. So I think it's important that paragraph stays in, but there will be some need to modify it based on the changes we've made to this.
Very good. Okay, everybody, we'll wrap this up. Noel?
And
Oh,
should
good man.
should that include yourself?
Okay, all right. I was just going to say, we have an amended resolution, which is now up on the screen. So instead of, we're now 1, 2, and 3, A and B. So we've got a new amended submission is tabled by committee to be received. That's the addition. Did I really need to have my name in there? I'm happy to. Okay, fine. So we'll add my name in there. That's all of the group. No, not replacing, adding. Yeah. All right. So Noel, you'd like to move the amended recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please? Yep. Warren's going to second. All in favour?
Division. Councillor Mahuta, I'm called to abstain. Thank you. Not sure if it's been recorded. I'll text it.
Yeah, we heard you, Tucker. Okay, one moment. So we haven't finished the resolution, Tipper, at this point. So item number 3 there is A or B. So we are approving removing A.
We're amending B to include the chair and deputy chair.
That's right. So just so we're absolutely clear what's up on the screen, this is the recommendation that we're going to be moving. Right, does everyone see the change there? Everyone's happy with it? Okay, so we've got Noel who's moving the recommendation. We've got Warren to second the recommendation. All in favour? Against?
Abstain.
And Tipper, you're abstaining? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, they're all in favour? Carried. Thank you. The word carried, so I did it again. Right, we're going to have a break, if that's right with everybody. We'll come back at 11:30. 15 minutes.